Awesome. So how you been doing?
I've been doing pretty good. How about you guys?
We've been doing pretty good. A little slow getting back into the game since the last interview we tried out, but on to better things.
Yeah.
How did you react when you found out you'd be on Forged in Fire?
So, it was my fourth time applying to be on, and I was pretty excited about it. I mean, I had kept trying, kept trying, and when they finally reached back out to me, it was great. I was a little nervous too. It was kind of like the dog chasing the car. Finally
Yeah.
catches it. Then what do you do, right?
Mhm.
So, and I'm thinking, man, I better start practicing like a lot of different stuff right now. Uh, but what ended up happening was they ended up casting me in April and last April, and then we didn't film for 11 months because of COVID. You know, what I mean?
Yeah.
So I really couldn't say anything, even though I wanted to. A few people knew, but yeah, I was freaking out for a bit, for sure.
That would take me a whole hell of a lot to hold all that in, not being able to say anything, and then
I know, a year, man.
yeah, that'd be torture.
Yep.
Yeah, that would be especially for you.
Yeah, especially for me.
You can't keep surprises.
No,
Not like shit.
like I can't keep surprises at all. I can't keep my mouth shut.
I'm that way too when it comes to stuff like that. I got my wife like a cameo thing before they were doing cameo, and I couldn't wait. Like as soon as I got it, I showed it to her, and she's like, "How did you do that? How did you do that?" She thought I faked it somehow or something, but I couldn't hold on to it either. I'm like, "Oh, this is so cool! I gotta show it to her right now."
Yeah, yeah.
It was a shock that I held on to the secret as long as I did. But I mean, it's pretty serious. Like you're under an NDA, and they tell you like, I mean, number one, you don't want to get sued. Number two, you want to be on the show, right? So
Exactly.
you don't
A
want
lot
to
of
do
pressure.
anything. Yeah, you don't want to do anything that would be like precluding you from being on. So
Yeah. That'd be the dog chasing the bone, finally get it, and then get it taken away.
right, yeah, bad dog.
Were you pretty excited when you found out what the challenge was going to be? The Wando?
Yeah, yeah, I definitely because I felt like it was, and I mentioned this on the show. It's a blade that I felt was in my wheelhouse. I mean, I've got a Wakazashi, which is pretty much the same thing. It's the
Mm.
Japanese version of the Korean sword that we made. Um, the Wakazashi has a little bit more of a curve in it, but if you notice in the show, Boyd Ritter, who's the actual guy that made that, normally David Baker makes those.
Yeah.
Boyd Ritter made that one for the episode. He's a Korean gentleman who was also a Forged and Fire champion, and he says that it has a slight curve in it. Now, when I was on the show, they were saying, "Oh no, you want to make it straight." I'm like, man, I just know this has a curve in it.
Mhm.
So I've seen them before. I've been around martial arts for the majority of my life, and so I couldn't help it. I couldn't help it when I quenched mine. I put that slight curve in it because that to me aesthetically is what it's supposed to look like.
Yeah, and if that's the way it's supposed to be, then that's the way it's like been seen historically. It seems like that's a curveball they were trying to throw at you.
Yeah, yeah, I definitely. There's a few curveballs. I mean, that was one for sure. The when Grady pulled the little cloth off and he showed us what we had to do. I was thinking like, oh my god, that's a finale weapon. That's
Hmm.
round one weapon. What the
Yeah,
hell is this? You know what I mean? It's got a habaki, it's got a guard, it's got a pummel that's got to be attached, it's got a wrapped handle, with a traditional Asian wrap and stuff. And I'm looking at this thing like, this is crazy. Like, and then also water quench. What the hell? Like,
yeah.
you've been telling us for 8 seasons, don't water quench, and now I look behind me. There's a giant fish tank. You know what I mean? And no oil. So it was pretty crazy.
What do you think? What did you think of having to do that, the water quench? Because that's just always a cringe moment when someone goes for the water. And, ah.
So yeah, I had my plan. Once they told me that, I said, okay, if I have enough time at the end of the round, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to edge quench it because I don't want to risk putting that whole thing in there and not really know what's going to happen. So they gave us these containers of salt, and I put a fair amount of salt in it. They don't show me doing that, and they actually, all of us did. Every smith put a pretty good amount of salt in it.
And I think they only showed one.
They did. Yeah, we all did. I don't know if I put in as much as he did, but I put in probably 5 of those big cups in there. And then the water was, since it's right next to the forge, I mean, it was much warmer than room temperature. I mean, it was pretty warm. I mean, like a bath probably, not wicked hot or anything, but like a bath. So
Okay.
I was confident that going into it with an edge quench was going to be a good idea. Just because, I was uncertain, and I had really not worked with that steel before. So that was kind of an unknown for me that threw me off a little bit too, with just how does this steel operate in water, right? I figured like 1095, I know you can water quench. Now, I'm not brave enough to do it and screw up a knife that I spent all this time working on, you know what I mean?
Me either.
Yeah. At the house, right, to practice. So, yeah, and then it's like, well, that's not the steel they gave us. And I'm thinking, man, I don't know how this, I knew a few techniques. I got some friends that are, smiths that are also culturally, around those type of weapons. And, man, I wish I could have asked them some advice, but, it wasn't a phone a friend moment.
Yeah. That'd be nice, just have Reed Philbin come out and be like, you can phone home.
Yeah, what do you want to do? Poll the audience? Trust me, I had a phone to friend for sure.
Right, yeah. Are you doing water quench since then?
Yeah, I have. Now, I'm not on that particular blade. Originally, my goal was to make another one complete, so when the show finally aired, like that, I'd be able to post it on social media and say, hey, look, here's one that's done. So I'm still planning on doing that. But I have water quenched. In fact, it's a blade. In fact, I have it here. So this puppy, it's a big one.
Yeah.
So this is a custom order that somebody wanted from me, and they want 2 of them. And this is from an old sawmill blade that was an unknown steel, but it had a really, really nice spark on it. And I figured it was robust enough to give that a try, so I went ahead and did that. And man, it's beautiful. It's no crack. It's, file check's great. I'll probably have this knife done this week because I still have, I have my full-time job I have to do as well. But I'll have this one done this week, and I'll have it up on my Instagram more than likely. It'll be on Instagram for sure.
Okay. I can't wait to see how that gets. Can't wait to see that when it's finished.
Yeah.
You've been doing blades for, what was it, 3 years?
So they said 2 on the show, but that's wrong. So
Okay.
It's about 4.5 actually.
4.5.
So when I was thinking to myself, because I saw that, and it's like, I mean, what do you say? I can't call them up and be like, hey, you got to change that.
Right, yeah.
So
I'd be sitting there being like counting on my hands trying to figure it out.
You know what it was? It was that because I applied 4 times over the period of probably 2 years. I probably started applying when I had 2 years experience, and I think they probably had an old application or whatever that they looked on. And they probably went, oh, they found one or whatever, and that was what they had on record. But it's about 4.5 years. So, I mean, it's still not a lot, but it's double what they said on the show. But I think, yeah, now looking back at it, and I've befriended the other guys I was on the show with. It's like going through a traumatic experience with somebody. You end up bond and all that. So because we were all, I mean, for me personally, like I looked at it as this is a challenge for me. I'm not really against them, right? That's not how I operate in life anyway. I'm not really against somebody, right? I'm like, can I do it? And so even when Jimmy had a problem, and I said, hey, I said this on the show, and it did make it to the show. I said, hey man, you got this. And it's just briefly in there, but if you see it when he broke his blade, You'll hear me say that. And he told me later that that really helped him to push through, to get something done.
Yeah, because I mean that's because that was twice that happened. The first time it like melted in half, and the tip of the blade just went right to the floor. Second time was after the quench. He was trying to straighten the warp, and it ting.
Yep. Now to his credit, he's a welding instructor for the last 12 years. So that's how he made it. Like that's how he saved it that way, and he was able to that pushed him forward because he's so good at that craft that he was able to. I don't think most people would not have been able to save that.
No, I wouldn't have.
Yeah,
I don't think I would have been able to.
Oh, I would have started crying.
I'll tell you, I did feel for him. I'm like, oh man, I said, in my mind, I'm like, I felt so bad because I could put myself in his shoes really easily. And he's a nice guy. Like we were talking, we all had our own trailers on set.
Oh, that's nice.
So it was pretty cool. And then so I've got mine. It's like right next to his because I was Anvil 3, he was Anvil 4. And so it's like you could hear each other through the wall. So we were talking to each other and, kind of, I don't think they wanted us to do that, but, what were they going to do? So we still talked or whatever and encouraging each other. Like, hey, man, what's your plan? What are you going to do? Because there's times that, we didn't know what was going to happen, right? The 3 hours was real. Like, that's legit. When that clock started, I mean, it didn't stop. So that was a true legit thing. There's other things that we did film a couple of times, like for TV. Like when you walk out, they film that a couple of times and they take the best take.
That makes sense.
It does. So there's a few things like that you got to remember. It is a TV show. So there was a little bit of acting involved, but the actual competition part where you're doing the stuff, all that's legit, like 100%. I had a cameraman. We all had our own personal cameraman. Then you got other camera people around with slow motion cameras and others. That's how they capture everything. Because otherwise you're thinking how would they be able to do that?
They got 30 or 40 people on set.
Well, yeah, you got your own guy, right? So when his blade fell in half, he had his own guy right there to film it. And they're just really well at hiding themselves so they're not in the other line of another camera and. They're set. I mean, everybody was super cool. The judges were awesome. All the staff that you don't see, super cool folks also. But yeah.
That actually kind of calms my nerves about going on myself. Doesn't calm my nerves about getting on a tube with wings on it, but
hey. There's a saying, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
Exactly.
So I kept doing it. I'm 52 years old. I started bladesmithing when I was 48. So it's not like, and I mean, I've been a karate guy for 46 years, but that's beside the point. The bladesmithing stuff, that's a hobby I picked up later in life. And I got on the show and with a required water quench with an unknown steel. And I'll tell you I was medically off the set for 20 minutes, and I'll tell you about that here in a little bit. With all of those things that went on, I turned in a parameter blade, quenched, properly set up for round 2 with good shoulders, a nice tang with about a half-inch part at the end that I had rounded so I was ready to peen it over. I was set up. I was setting myself up well for the second round. So the fact that some of the things, like I said, I'll talk to you, whenever you're ready, we'll talk about that. The fact that I did that and was able to get through and still turn in something for the judges, I'm pretty proud of that. There's a lot of people on the show that turn nothing in at the end of the day. So the fact that I was able to turn something in that I wanted it. I wanted to keep it. I wanted to bring it home, and I'm like, I think I can finish this. I know it had some cracks, but I was like, I'm pretty sure I can fix that. And even when they were saying it, when we were getting feedback, I'm like, it was really between 3 of us. The guy to my right was Dave, and the guy to my left was Jimmy, and all of us had cracks at the end of the first round. And I was thinking, man, it's the way they were making it sound. I'm thinking, dude, I don't know. His blade broke twice. His blade's had 8 cracks. They only mentioned 2 on the TV show, but he had 8 cracks. He had 6 going across his spine. that they talked about. I'm thinking like, dude, you got 8 cracks. I mean, I guess they weren't as bad as mine, where it had in the temper. What happened is because I couldn't even get a fingernail in my crack when I quenched it.
But then it opened up to the temper.
In the temper, it opened up, and like that's something we've got no control over. Like you don't see that till the next day because temper, that's a 4-hour process typically. So the next day when I saw it, I'm like, what the? I'm like, I would have put a Vita weld on it if I thought it was going to open up like that.
Oh yeah.
And then I don't think it would have opened at all. Like if I would have welded that one crack, I think I would have went on to round 2. But, again, like on the day, those guys were better than me. I don't begrudge them. They didn't make the decision whether who goes forward or not. That was the show and the judges or whoever makes the ultimate call. That just wasn't my day. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But in my exit interview when I was leaving, this didn't make it to TV either, but they were saying, like, would I be, if there was an opportunity to come back in the future, would I do it? And I was like, absolutely yes. So I'm hoping. I did reapply, by the way. So yeah, I went ahead and did it. I'm like, what do I have to lose? I mean, honestly, I mean, maybe it's my ego, and maybe I should pull my ego in a little bit. But I feel like I could have won. Like I feel like that those weapons are in my wheelhouse. And I'm not saying I'm better than Eric, the guy that won, but I feel like I would have been competitive for sure. If I could have got to the second round. I really don't think my blade would have broke in the second round. I think that with the edge quench, if I would have, and I'll tell you what happened with that in a second, but with an edge quench and the spine soft, it might have bent, but I don't think it would have broke.
Yeah, maybe just opened up a little bit more or something.
Right. And hey, that's all I had to do was survive the hit.
Yeah, because one broke in half and the other broke in half and then shattered.
Yeah. So I mean, and so when I was quenching it, there's my cameraman was right in front of the tank, and I'm holding it with 2 tongs, and I'll tell you why I did that in a minute. And the camera's like right there, and as I'm putting the tip in, it's bubbling really cool, and I'm like, oh, this is going to be a really cool shot for TV, and I let that get into my mind.
Oh.
And then it went crack, and I'm like, I should have flash quenched it. Water, like a quick flash and then out, flash and then out, a little longer each time.
So it's not as much of a shock.
Exactly, and I think I would have not developed the crack I did. But I'm thinking about, oh, this is going to be a cool shot for TV. I shouldn't have been thinking about that. I should have been thinking about, I got to get this quench and there was like 3 minutes left on the clock at this point. I mean, there wasn't a lot of time. I didn't have a lot of, I was thinking, should I go to the welder and try to weld it? What little crack I did see at that moment. But with the medical issue that I ended up having, you'll hear Jay Nielsen said, oh, I think Martin's tapping out. And then you see me walk over to this chair, and if you notice, you can see I'm favoring my hand. I'm rubbing my hand. I can't really use it.
Yeah.
And, that's really kind of what, and maybe it's because I was the oldest guy, or, I didn't train enough. I probably should have been more on my diet with potassium and electrolytes and all that type of stuff. Because, I'm telling you, as hot as you think it is at your forge in your house, 4 forges, triple burner Majestics, set full blast when you get
and all those people.
And the lights, the set lights, and yeah, you're right. And there's probably, I didn't count them, but had to be 30 people on the set, So, it's a huge TV production. Think about how popular that show is. It's on Netflix now. It's like it's a global show. It's crazy. So it's
Netflix, they upload to Hulu weekly. Just lost my train of thought.
Well, I got friends in the UK and friends in Canada, and they've all seen it. My episode. So that's crazy, right? Because nobody, it's just United States or whatever. No, that's a global show. So the exposure is awesome. And I was talking to somebody about it, and if you take every bladesmith in the world, what percentage has been on Forge and Fire at all? And the answer is like way less than 1%.
Oh yeah,
You know,
way less than 1%.
way less. Like, so it's kind of like, I mean, I liken it to like the Olympics of bladesmithing. You know, I mean, it's to get on and be able to compete there. There's a lot of guys out there that are excellent bladesmiths, but and I don't want to be crass, but maybe they don't have the balls to step up and compete. You know, or maybe they feel like, hey, I've got too much to lose, right? Let's say they're a full-time bladesmith. They've been doing it for 20 years or whatever, and they get on the show and they fail, you know? Like,
That's happened too.
It has. And
I can't remember specifically, but the guy like just happened to not sharpen his blade good enough, and his business is kind of went.
He said for a year he didn't sell a knife for a year. So think about, I mean, that's huge.
Yeah, that'd be depressing.
I mean, no income for a year on the thing that you were doing full time before you risked it all to be on this show. So, I mean, there's a whole lot involved in it. And I used to compete in karate a lot. You know, I was a competitive fighter, competitive in forms and weapons and stuff like that. And I have that competitive nature in me. But as I said, more against myself. Even when if I did forms or weapons or something competitively, I didn't really care what the other guy did. I was doing the best I could do. And I kind of approached this with the same mindset. I'm like, you know, I want these guys to be successful, but I also want to be successful. And I'm going to do the best I can right now. And on that day, I did. On a side note, I like the sacks you guys put together recently.
Oh yeah, I like how it turned out, but I don't particularly. It's sitting on the dash of my truck right now. But it turned out really sharp. But the bevels didn't just seem to turn out right. Can't really do a whole lot on my. Was it like a 6x48
or something?
Yep. Yeah, 6x48.
You know, if you took a rasp or something like that, you could probably fix the bevels by hand. It would be a pain in the butt, and it would take some time to do it, but you could even it out pretty good. Just doing it slow by hand, you know, and then fix potentially what. But hey, you know, I've got plenty of knives that I keep, so nothing wrong with keeping it too.
Yeah, that's what I was going to do. So, to be honest, you kind of threw us off. You answered a lot of questions that we had.
And that was just awesome. I'm not gonna lie.
That was another thing that kind of, curveballs. But no, I'm actually really glad that happened because that gives room to improvise and stuff.
Yeah, I mean we can talk about whatever you want.
Favorite dinosaur?
Triceratops.
Mine too.
I always liked the Triceratops because you know what? He wasn't the biggest, but he was like really tough. And I was like, you know, I like it because like the underdog, but like he could fight the T-Rex and still like hold his own. Mm-hmm. So I was all about the Triceratops.
And man, they have some cool skulls.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So if you want, I mean, I can talk about the medical thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
So what happened was, I was working on and they don't show this on the show, but I made the mistake of not bringing any of my own tools because they told me they have everything that you would potentially want or need. So that includes tongs, hammers of various weights and such. Now I get on the show and I cut my piece of steel to a little more than half because I don't know how much of that I'm really going to need to draw out because the blade parameter was a 16-inch blade with about a 6-inch handle, which included a peen over. So that's 22 inches, and they say usually 22 is the limit of the blade length. So I was cutting out what I thought I needed on my portaband, which, by the way, they set to half speed on me and didn't tell me. I didn't know that until the guy next to me went through his so fast. I'm like, what the hell's going on here? And I look over and I see it set to 3. I'm like, so I turn it up and then I was able to. So yeah, there was like I think it was I'm not saying they set a trap, but I'm saying like whoever used it last had it on that speed, and I didn't think to check it. So now I'm off my game a little bit. So I see everybody welding the full work stick to the billet, and I'm like, I'm not doing that. I'm going to cut a small piece of rebar, and I'm going to weld that to it so I can use tongs. And David Baker even says in one of his tips that he thinks that's the smart idea to do. Like, don't have this unwieldy work stick that's going to get hot. He said, put a little thing on there so you can use it for tongs. So I'm like, that's what I'm going to do. So it's kind of funny. Jimmy was over at the welder, and he welded his stick on. And then I had basically, I was next waiting in line for him. So when he finished, I went over there. And you're supposed to shout welding before you weld. So yeah. I shout welding, and then I touch it, and nothing happens. Like, what's going on? Because Jimmy was here. So then I look over, and the machine is off. Jimmy turned it off when he left. Now I'm freaking out, like, oh man, I'm off my game again because I'm expecting it to weld, and nothing's happening. So I turn the welder on. It says, okay, now you're ready. Then I weld. I do my thing. I get the work stick on there, how I want it, the small version. And I go over to grab some tongs. No tongs fit the rebar.
How?
I was so pissed. I'm like, oh my God, I'm behind again. So what am I going to do? Because I didn't bring my own, which I know would have fit. And I had a particular set that I was allowed to work with because of COVID. You had a lot of your own stuff.
Yeah.
So I got the smallest pair I could find that would fit, that were rounded, and I stuck them in the forge to get the tongs red hot. And I brought my work gloves with me. I got some hot gloves that are awesome. So I brought those with me. I did bring that, and I brought my apron. So I got them red hot. I put them around the rebar, and I hammered them to the shape of the rebar as best as I could do that. And then I had to quench those. And, so I'm like, I'm behind though. Like, I'm definitely behind at this point. Cause by the time I get all that done, that's another 10 minutes off the clock. And there's a set rule that they say carry low, which means if you're carrying your hot steel, you have to have it low to the ground so you don't accidentally turn into a person or whatever, or a piece of equipment. So now I'm holding, like, I don't quite have a good fit on this. So I'm holding it really tight as I can because I'm trying to carry low. But I'm squeezing way harder than I normally would have to just try to keep the thing shut. And I know I can. I just got to get in my mind. I'm like, I got to get the billet to the length and width parameter so I can change the tongs out to like a proper blade tong, and then I'm not going to have this problem anymore because I can get rid of the work stick and all that completely. But in the meantime, I'm squeezing really hard, and I've got, on my personal YouTube, my karate YouTube, I've got a lot of grip strength training stuff that I show. I'm very strong, grip strength wise. I mean, I used to bench 400 pounds when I was younger. Wow. Yeah, so I'm a pretty strong guy, and I go over, and my hand starts cramping, like right here, this thumb muscle.
Oh.
And I go over, I get it down to the blade tongs, and I'm like, all right, I need to go to the grinder so I can set these shoulders a little bit better. I didn't like the way the tang looked, and I wanted to make sure that I could get the tang kind of in a proper shape so that the habaki would fit on, and they did provide us with the habaki. So I go over to the grinder, and my right hand just closes, I'm not willing it to do that. I just watch it close. And I'm like, what the hell? So I pry it open with my other hand, and it just closes again, like at about the speed I'm showing you. And I'm thinking, like, am I having a stroke right now? Like, what's going on? This is ridiculous. So I said, all right, my left hand's okay. My right hand, I just close it on the tang. So it's locked on the tang. And this thing is still probably 600 degrees. I mean, it's hot. But as I'm feeling it through my gloves, but the glove is protecting me. And I'm like, all right, I got to shape this. I got to set, I refined the tip a little bit. I got it to the width I wanted it to be. I started working on setting some bevels in it. then my left hand closes.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, this one's locked. I can't open it. This one's closed. I start putting it on the edge to try to like pry it open, and I can't do it. So I call for the medic. I'm like, medic. And a person runs over real fast. And like none of this made it to the show. And they take me outside. They pry I said, I can't open my hands. Like I can't open them at all. And they take me outside. They open my hands. They give me oxygen. I'm like laying in this chair. And you've seen it in the past when they used to show that type of thing, but they don't show any medical issues anymore. I was told like that they're not going to show any of that. So anyway, so they could pry my hands open. I got a nurse like rubbing that muscle. I'm on oxygen. They're giving me electrolytes. My hands are shaking like all crazy. You know, and I'm panicking like, and I know I'm so close to done. Like I'm so close. I just have a little bit more work to do in the tang, and I gotta thermal cycle it, straighten it, and quench it. Like that's what I had left. And a guy comes out, one of the directors, producers, whatever, and he's like, "Hey, I'm one of the rules officials, and we're, you know, first of all, how are you?" And I'm like, "I'm feeling a little bit better. I'm getting better." You know, and he's like, "Well, I need you to kind of make a decision. Are you going to come back on the set, or are we going to have to medically withdraw you?" And I'm like, no. I'm too close to being done. Like I'm almost done. I have to go back on the set, right? And I'm slamming Gatorades and eating bananas, and you know it's a little late at that point, but and I was drinking a lot. Like I hydrated a lot, but the nurse said, "Were you drinking Gatorade?" And I said, "No." And she's like, "This is an electrolyte deficiency. This is not a dehydration issue." She said, "It's an electrolyte thing." And I'm like, I'm freaking out, right? So I know there's not a lot of time left. So I go back in, and, you know, it's one of those things like the guy, they clapped and all that or whatever. And I come in, and I go right to what I need to do. Thank God I left my blade on the anvil and not, or at the grinder, and not, it wasn't in the forge when they had to take me out.
Oh, God.
Because it would have just melted in half like Jimmy.
Yeah.
So thank God I left it on the, or they had left it out for me. So I got in there. I went over to the grinder to, again, try to clean it up, and my hand starts locking up on me again, my right. So I start straightening with my left hand. I'm being patient. I'm just stretching it. I'm like, all right, just relax. You're so close. Just relax. Calm down. I'm looking at the clock. There's like 3 minutes left. You know, something stupid like that. So I go over, maybe a little more than that, maybe 5 minutes. So I'm like, all right, I got time for one thermal cycle. So I start doing that, and the blade starts to warp because it's so hot. And you can't tell the color of the steel on the set because of all the set
all the lights.
Yeah, it looks like it's not. It looked cherry red to me. It didn't look orange at all. I'm like, this is barely hot enough to quench right now. And it was so hot, like it was forge welding temperature. But you couldn't tell that by looking at it. So it starts to bend. I'm like, gosh, I can't have this. So I go over to the anvil and I straighten it out. My right hand, as I get the tongs on the knife, my right hand locks up again. And I'm like, I got to quench this thing. So I put it in the forge. I got it to the quench temperature. I pull it out, and I grab it with the tongs. My right hand starts to lock. It locks in on me. My left hand, this is why I use two tongs. So you'll see on the show, I've got two. Well, yeah. I had to use the second one to get closer to the back of the knife because my right hand was locked again. So then I'm like, all right, I'm going to do an edge quench, like a crescent moon edge quench, and the backhand is going to steer for me because my right hand can't do anything except hold this thing shut. So I start to do that, and then I hear crack, and I'm like, and I've never cracked a blade in 4 years in the quench. I've dropped the blade and cracked it. I've cracked one straightening it out, but in a quench, I've never cracked a blade, although I don't water quench with any regularity either. So I do this, and I hear the crack, and I'm like, what am I going to do now? So I pull it out. It's slightly warped. 3 minutes left on the clock. I pour a little bit of water on the anvil, and I put it with the kick up so that the water will pull the warp out of it.
Yeah.
They don't show that either, any of that. And I thought that was pretty good. I'm like, hey, man, I'm doing some good things here. Like, this is stuff that, like, a smith with more experience than I would do. And then I finally got my hand open. My left hand stayed okay. My right hand locked up, and my left hand was all right. I managed to stretch it out, and then I'm like, and you'll hear me say on the show, I'm like, I don't have any more left in me. Like, I don't have any more left. And then you hear Jay Nielsen say, I think Martin's tapping out. And I walk over to this chair they had set up for me, and you'll see me over there with like a Gatorade and, my right hand, which is on my knee. So it would be, you were watching TV, it'd be on the left.
Yeah.
You just see it kind of sitting there, just open. And if you look at it, I've got pretty big hands in general, but it's so swollen that it's like almost abnormal looking. Like it's just crazy swollen. And so that, with all that went on, like all that behind the scenes that you never see on the episode. And that's why I want to share it with you so that people can see like, hey, this is some of the other stuff that went on that made it even more challenging for me personally. And, and the fact that I finished at all and turned something quenched, like I'm proud of that.
I have something specific to him since he wants to go back on.
Go ahead.
This is a little Vinnie Paul advice right here. If you can stomach pickle juice, drink it before you go on. It works better than Gatorade. It works better than freaking Pedialyte. I've had my fair share of experiences with dehydration and pickle juice that scared away the puke monster.
So, like, you're saying, like, do that right before, like, literally right before, or, like, the day before, or, like, when would you do that?
I drank pickle juice an hour or two before hopping into the forge and had an excellent forge day. So
okay.
All them electrolytes and the good salts keeps you going.
Sometimes that can be the difference between her, like, going out and having a good day in the forge or going out and having a day in the forge and end up freaking puking her brains out.
Yeah.
CVS got triggered by something.
Seriously, thank you for that advice. That's awesome. I'll definitely use that. And I really feel like that 20 minutes. So the couple of traps I had, like the portaband being set to half speed and it throwing me off, the medical issue that I was off the set for 20 minutes. Like if I could have those 25 minutes back, I feel like I would have quenched 25 minutes early, and then I would have had plenty of time to go put a bead weld on that crack.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? And then I feel like, and I'm not the best welder in the world, but I can put a bead on, and I feel like I would have been able to, that would have made the difference of me going forward, I think, and again, we don't really know because it's already done. And what happened was that I didn't, but I feel like recapturing that, I would have been able to potentially, have gotten further. And I really do feel, and I even told them too when I reapplied to be on, I'm like, I want to be on a water quench episode. Put me back. Because I feel like I gotta redeem myself from that. It's like, do it. I don't care. I'll be on another one.
What would you do differently?
So definitely, without a doubt, edge quench it. And like that flash quench I was talking about, like literally you put and I would probably also clay, majority of the blade. Like I'm talking, how when they put a hamon, it's kind of like in the middle. I'm talking like
right down to the edge,
all the way to like have a 1/4 inch that you don't clay. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's it. And that quenches. Because
that makes sense to me.
That's the edge, right?
Yeah.
So hey, man, and that 1/4 inch leaves me enough room to sharpen it and then put the bevels and stuff you want on it. I mean, it'd be kind of. I think you could still get it plenty sharp to do all the tests. Really, I think ultimately, like you didn't even see sharpness test because nothing made it past the strength test.
Yeah, it was 3 wax.
Yeah. And then I feel like definitely for sure, if you do it that way, clay it up, thermal cycle 3 times, have enough time to do that. You know what I mean? Like build time in, thermal cycle 3 times, clay the crap out of it, If they give me salt, dude, I might pour the whole effing thing in there. You know, I mean, it was a giant container. Pour the whole freaking thing in there.
Was it just salt they gave you for it, or?
Yeah, because it slows down it makes it more like oil. It, kind of slows down the quench process, so it's not as rapid as it normally would be.
Yeah.
But I didn't know that initially, so I didn't put enough in, or I didn't put as much in as I would have if I would have known that. So I'd probably pour the majority of it in there. To get it as close to oil as I can, maybe preheat the water too, with a piece of mild steel or something like that. But it was pretty hot. I mean, it was like Jimmy's tank started to melt, like the ends of the tank.
Oh, wow, really?
Yeah, because it was so close to the forge. He had to call them, and they had to move it because I don't know how many gallons that thing was, but it's probably 50 or 60 gallons. I mean, it was a big tank, I don't know. I can't judge it. Maybe I'm way off on that, but I mean, it was large, Can you imagine if one of those broke?
Oh, yeah, it'd be all over.
The water would have been everywhere. Like, it would have been great for TV, but probably terrible for, for us.
Yeah.
Terrible
for production.
So another... the one consistent fuck from everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So the other thing, too, that happened to me that threw me off, and thank God, like, I have that same press at my house, the Coal Iron Works press. I've got the 16-ton version. They've got the 24-ton version on the show. So thank God that was there because it was in my wheelhouse to use it. I understood how it worked, and I understood what the dies did and everything else.
Really sped things up.
Oh, yeah. But I made a kiss plate, and I put the kiss plate over by the press. And I told Jimmy, I'm like, hey, man, there's a kiss plate over there. You can use it if you want to. And he's like, cool, thanks. So I get everything ready, and I go back over there, and it's gone. The kiss plate's gone. And I'm like, what? But now what am I going to do? Because it was a 1/4 inch.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is going to be great because it's not going to get too thin. And his did get too thin. And then what happened was when they told us, like, if you go over there and you're not wearing a glove, all right, we didn't use the foot pedal if we used the hand. And I did not use the foot pedal because I'm not that proficient with it, so I used the hand. They said if you use the hand and it's not gloved, then someone had to come clean it immediately because of the COVID restrictions. So, like, and I saw it happen a couple times, like when I left and I went over and I looked back and I saw a person over there cleaning it right away. And I'm like, man, someone from the set took my kiss plate, maybe not knowing what it was, or when they were cleaning, they may have knocked it out over somewhere and I just didn't find it. But man, you talk about throwing me off. That really threw me off. Yeah. Because now I got to eyeball it and try to figure out, like, don't let this get too thin. And thank God I didn't. But yeah, that was another thing. That one of those things again, like when you're in this competition and you on the episode you hear me yelling at Grady, like, hey Grady, what's the time check? And we kind of had a funny moment between us. And he's a super cool guy. Like he follows me on Instagram now. He messaged me a few times when the show was on, like, just commenting about, our interaction and stuff. Like, a really cool guy. But that clock gets in your head. And
I bet.
When you start looking over there, because at your house, hey, you can spend as much time as you want doing something. You want to spend extra time setting bevels or fooling with the tang, or you can think about it overnight, like, oh, I want to change this or whatever. You can do that at the house. On the set, no. You've got that thing is ticking down, man, and it waits. There's a saying, time waits for no man.
Yep.
Or woman, right? The time waits for nobody, basically. And it doesn't. And man, when I'm off set and that 20 minutes, that I'm not there is ticking down, and then I'm back in and I lose a couple of minutes here on this or a couple minutes here on that, that takes away from your time to create something quality and potentially finish or not finish. So, the fact, like I said, the fact that I finished parameter blade, I met all the parameters, quenched, and turned it in, considering everything that I had going on, I'm pretty happy about that.
Because that's probably one of the toughest challenges they've had on the show.
Well, it's funny because, Jay Nielsen was telling us beforehand, he says this is the only time in the history of the show we've ever asked this as a mandatory requirement. And I was looking in some of the bladesmithing forums, after we were on the show, and I've talked to some of the other smiths that were on the show with me, and the general feedback that we've all gotten and that we've seen in some of these forums is like the bladesmith community is like pretty, I wouldn't say upset, but they're surprised that like they threw that in as a challenge. And I was talking to some other folks about it, and they're like, I don't know if they'll ever do that again. Like, it was so hard as an additional parameter. Like, they may never make that a mandatory requirement again. So I might be the first and only episode of a mandatory water quench.
Well, I kind of hope they do that again. Just not when I decide to go on.
Well, they need to do it for me one more time, so
yeah.
I could.
They should do it for you one more time.
I was gonna say, if they do that and I'm there, then half of what all the freaking poor audience is gonna hear is bleep, 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 yeah, bleep.
Oh, they'll bleep
Only
it.
fucking hear from me.
Yeah, they'll bleep it for you. You can say whatever you want. Oh, and that's the other funny thing. Like, you're mic'd up. Like, when you get on the set in the morning, and this was kind of a cool moment for me. So, we're on the set, and I recognize the back area of the set right away. And, they're telling me which trailer is my trailer and all that. And then you see the judges' trailers, right? And then they're, like, going over some of the rules with us, and we see David Baker pulling up on his motorcycle. And I was like, man, that's David Baker. That's so cool. Like, just strolling in to work. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I just thought that was awesome. And he was, like, I had the most time with him that I got to speak to him more than anybody. All of the judges were great, but David Baker took, like, an extra, when I was leaving the set, after I had gotten booted off, he happened to be outside, and he didn't have to do this, but he spent like 10 minutes talking to me. Like, oh man, I've had that. He was talking about how that hand thing happened to him on the Beat the Judges one, where he had to forge for 8 hours or whatever.
Yeah.
You'll notice him rubbing his hand in one. He said the same exact thing happened to him, like his hand locked up.
God, it fucking sucks when that happens.
Oh, I know. And it's like, it's this mental game that it plays with you. Like, how do I fix this? And that it's completely out of your control. Like, someone else is controlling your body.
My locks around my hammer. My hand locks. My hand actually does. I deal with the same problem where my hand locks up. Mine will lock up when I'm hammering. So when I put my hammer down, it's locked in this position.
Right. Yep. That's exactly.
So I can appreciate that situation. That sucks.
Uh-huh.
And then I have it where it gets stuck and I cannot move my middle finger. It's just kind of locked, and my middle finger is locked down a little further than the others.
Yep. They call that trigger finger. I've had that happen too, where my pointer finger locks, and then it'll be like that, and I just have to do that, and then it pops back.
My thumb will do that.
Yeah. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah. It's like if I'm like really getting into gaming or something, playing Call of Duty, and I'm doing really good, my thumb will just.
Yeah.
I have to throw my hand open. Just whack.
Yeah, throwing it open doesn't do
It only gets worse when you get older. But it was pretty cool.
For the warning.
Yeah. What was that?
Thanks for the warning. I'm ambidextrous, so I can get away with it. It happens with my right hand and not my left. Not yet, at least.
Use that, because that's going to help quite a bit. But yeah, seeing him pull up on his motorcycle was really cool. Having him talk to me, spend some time talking to me afterwards was pretty awesome. I was pretty stoked about that. And like one of the guys on the way back was, when they were driving me back to the hotel, one of the guys was like, man, he said, don't get too down on yourself. He goes, of everybody that's there competing, he goes, 3 people are going to lose.
Yep.
And I was like, yeah, you're right. Because I was a little depressed, of course. I mean, not. I wasn't saying anything, but I guess the guy could probably tell. I was a little disappointed. He's like, hey, man, three of those guys, 3 of the people that competed are going to lose. Only one guy's coming away with the win after that. And I'm like, good point.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think anybody goes on there to not be a Forged and Fire champion. I know I would be at least a little bit depressed for a little while.
Yeah, because you know what? You second guess on your decisions. You're like, did I do this, or what if I would have done something else? Would it have turned out differently? And it's kind of funny too, because I had some friends that were, and some coworkers that were like, well, did you at least make it to round 2? I'm like, what do you mean? Did I at least make it to round 2? I made it on the show. Like I'm Forged in Fire alumni for the rest of my life. You know what I mean?
What is it, like 40,000 Bladesmiths in the world?
Yeah.
The only thousands of those 40,000 that even try to get on the show, and then that was the 100th show, wasn't it? 100th episode, was
it? Something like that.
Something like that.
Yeah, so it's a small amount, though.
Yeah, it's a very small amount.
And the fact that I can say, like, hey, man, because I'll tell you right now what could potentially happen. Someone might recognize me in the future and be like, hey, man, I saw you on Forged in Fire. I'll be like, oh, yeah, that's cool. But you know what they're not going to remember? Did I win or did I lose?
Yeah.
Like, I can look at some past contestants and be like, oh, yeah, I remember that guy. But I don't remember if he won. I just remember, like, maybe his personality or whatever. And that speaks to a couple other things. Like, when I came out, like, I did the martial art thing where I did that. Like, no one's ever done that before on their entry. I'm the only person that's ever done that on the entry of walking out on the set.
And that is something that sticks out, too.
Right. And I got special permission from that. I asked, like, hey, I'd like to do this. Is that okay? And they had to ask some people, and then they came back to me and like, well, what is it exactly? And I showed it to them. They're like, oh, yeah, that's fine. You can do it. They're like, well, why don't you just do it to Doug? I'm like, well, because the symbolism is when you do this and you roll your hands and pull forward, that's a challenge in the martial arts. So I was challenging, like, the set, challenging the environment.
Okay.
And like in my competition days, that's what I would have done also in my karate competition. So it was kind of like me bringing that element to it. And then, for a guy, my family and a lot of folks have said to me, they've commented on the amount of airtime I got, because even though I went out in the first round, I got quite a bit of airtime. And, I'm the thumbnail for the episode. I'm up there measuring it. And then my voice is in the commercial. So, like, all that's really cool. I'm super proud to be able to say, like, those things. I didn't win, but hey, I got some really cool, unique things that I'm a part of also.
It seems like even if you didn't get past the first round, you won, like, a lot of exposure just.
Oh yeah.
Getting on there.
Absolutely.
Thing.
Without a doubt. Without a doubt. And again, just to. It's like I'm tentatively going to try to make it to the Blade show next year in Atlanta, and they do an alumni Forged in Fire picture every year on the stairs, and it'll just be cool to be part of that, and talk to the guys, and maybe I don't know by then if I'll have been able to do any redemption episode. But as I said, like I did apply. I really would like to get back and give it one more try. I don't think I'd apply a third time, but I will. I did already. I already told them I want to go again. I've formally reapplied. So hopefully, season 9 or whatever, right?
Yeah.
They'll bring me back. I mean, I'd like to come back when I'm fully vaccinated, so. I have to be for my work and stuff, and for my mom. She's in a home. I can't see her unless I'm fully vaccinated, so I went ahead and did that. I don't know if I should be saying that publicly because a lot of people feel differently about it. But
your body, your choice.
Right. If you're on the set and you are, then you don't have to wear a mask now. Right. So if you see a lot of the folks now, like you could have a different interaction than you would. Prior to that, and I was on the fence about it, but when they told me I couldn't see my mom unless I did it, like I wasn't, she doesn't have a whole lot more time with us in this world, and I wasn't going to take a risk of not being able to like physically go see her,
Oh no, you got to get that time in.
Yeah. But anyway, I don't mean to get political.
Yeah, sorry to hear about that though.
I'm a libertarian, and I'm all about Yeah, so you know what it is. I mean, that's
life, liberty. I don't mess with you. You don't mess with me.
Exactly.
Yep. If you could pick a Forged in Fire judge to collaborate with, who would it be and why?
So if I could pick a Forged in Fire judge to collaborate with, I would. Oh, that's really tough. Because I really like and no offense to Doug Marcotte, but he's not a bladesmith, so it would not be him. It would be, man. It's so hard because Jay Nielsen's was so cool, and David Baker was also. I'd probably lean towards David Baker. I really like. I don't know if you guys saw the episode with the judges where he recreated this basket hilt saber that he did.
Oh yeah. I did see that one.
Work of art, just beautiful. And I'm pretty laid back. He seems also pretty laid back. I'm probably close to his age. I'm probably close to Jay Nielsen's age too. I'm actually probably close to all of their ages. So I don't know, but I feel like it would be between Jay Nielsen and David Baker. Probably leaning a little bit towards David Baker just because of some of the Scottish Irish heritage, which I am, and I'd love to collaborate with him or pick his brain on that type of stuff. Speaking of that, I don't know if I showed you all this last time, if I had it. So I'm going to try to see the low layer Damascus pattern.
Oh yeah.
So this is a Skean-Dhu. It's a Scottish sock knife that I've made. It's got an antler bolster and a really cool spalted wood handle, and a little low layer Damascus pattern. So this is the one that you would put in your sock. And it's the first Damascus blade I made. And I decided that since the first knife I learned how to make was that knife when I took a class, that the first Damascus knife I made would have to be the same one. But anyway, I thought I'd show it to you since I don't think I had last time.
That makes sense. Goes in the circle.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry about that. What steel did you use for that?
I used 1095 and 15 and 20. So that's the shiny part.
Yeah, the high nickel content.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of my favorites to see in pattern welded steels. The nice shiny.
Yeah, the nickel.
Yeah. It's
expensive though. A lot of that stuff. Yeah. It's when I ordered it, I was like, man, this is a high dollar. So that's the disheartening thing too. A lot of people, when you talk about making Damascus, if you mess it up, if you mess up the billet for some reason, that's a lot of money you potentially messed up. That, which is why you should charge more for a Damascus blade than you would for a standard mono steel.
Oh yeah, it uses up a lot of steel and a lot of time. There's no guarantees.
Yeah, and it's funny too when I see on the show guys making 108 layer billets in one round and then making it into a knife shape in that first round. That impresses me greatly because to make the billet for that knife probably took me 2.5 hours. Just to make the Damascus. And that's just a rectangle. That's not even a shape of a blade.
Yeah.
Now, granted, that was my first time, and I don't have the experience that a lot of those folks do that are doing those high layer Damascus patterns. But man, that impresses me greatly when you see guys knock that stuff out like that. So get some lawnmower blades and get. Even if you threw something in there, if you wanted to do a San Mai or a Go Mai or something like that, and you just put some mild steel on the outside of it, you'll still get a pretty cool looking pattern. And then that's the first step towards Damascus. Just stack 3 layers and weld it together, weld it shut, and then forge weld that when you're done. And then when you sand it, when you get down to grinding it, when you get to that high carbon steel center. And it's pretty cheap to do it that way because a lawnmower blade is going to be some high carbon steel. And if you put a lower, a known mild steel on the outside, just make sure everything's clean. You probably come up with a pretty cool looking blade.
Okay.
And then
give that a shot.
And etch it. So the whole thing with that is 30 minutes in ferric chloride. 1 cup ferric chloride for 3 cups water. And do it in that ratio for 30 to 40 minutes, and you'll see a pattern. I guarantee you'll see a pattern.
Okay. I'll have to say that I've usually steered clear of lawnmower blades because I heard that they really weren't all that good.
They're not, but It's cheap though. You know what I mean?
Cheap and good practice.
Right, exactly. Yeah, you're not doing it to make the best blade you've ever made. You're doing it to practice
Yeah.
The forge welding.
Yeah, because we got a bunch of leaf spring here
Oh, that's
that we can use, and
hmm
I've tried forge welding with that. Just a chunk of 1085 little bit for a wrapped eye axe head.
cool.
I just could not get it to weld.
Really?
Yeah,
Was it? I mean, you got to clean it really good beforehand.
and that was probably the case. It wasn't clean enough, but it just really goes to show that like even if you have it as clean as you think it needs to be, it probably isn't.
Yeah. What I ended up doing with the billet I did is any visible air gap I could see or that I even perceived, I threw a bead of weld on it. And so like I had puddles going all the way down. Any place I thought air might get in there after I had cleaned everything, I have lines of weld to hold it shut. And it's actually on my YouTube channel, on the Panda Bear Forge YouTube channel. I have my Damascus build on there. It's like a 14-minute video or something like that, and I show all the steps that I did for it. And I heated it up pretty hot. The other advice someone gave me was leave it in the forge for a while to let it soak. So you want the steel should be the same color as the forge floor.
Okay.
And then when you bring it out, immediately flux any open edge or any open side, and then small presses or small hammer strikes.
Yeah, light little taps.
Get it set, and you'll hear it. You'll hear if it's a solid piece of steel, or you'll hear if it's hollow. Once you do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that's probably tends to be my other problem, is just kind of
Hitting it, like going.
hitting it too hard. Yeah.
That was me too. I did that quite a bit. I had to back it way down, and what I ended up doing was I just went to a lighter weight hammer, and then it kind of taught me some patience, to properly set a weld, because then I could swing it hard, but because it was only a 1.5-pound hammer, wasn't doing what the 3-pound hammer was doing. So, and then I had taught myself, like, all right, you can use the 3 or the 2-pound, you just don't crit. You're not swinging for the fences. It's a finesse thing and a take your time thing, And I was super patient, setting the Damascus, just super patient. And I think with all that, it ended up working out for me. So
I'm a clean freak and I tend not to hit my pieces very hard. In fact, I've been having an issue with that lately. Damascus will not be a problem for me. I do not hit anything nearly as hard as you do.
Yeah, because I kind of go for that hand grenade. Yeah, I tend to swing harder than I need to most of the time.
Oh my gosh, it's fun watching you go really fast though, because you go really fast.
Yeah, because generally I don't forge a whole lot of blades out. Yeah, but we're trying to make the transition into doing more blades, because that's originally the intention of starting the forge as a business. We had blades in mind, and then had to learn how to do that.
The wands you guys do are really cool too.
That's him.
Yeah, that one's me.
Yeah. That was cool. Oh, there goes the mic.
I taped down the wires. This is the one I made in that video.
Nice.
There's kind of put in front of the friggin'.
Yeah, that's cool. I like it.
But
what do you do to get the gem looking shape on the end, like the color? You just using a map gas torch?
Well, after I grind it down into like the kind of crystal shape, it's just hitting it with a little butane torch. Where's the? We actually have it here, right here.
Like a plumber's torch.
Yeah, like this little thing, little tiny,
okay. Torch. I got you. Nice.
And that gives me pretty good control to get the colors in there.
Yeah, I like it.
But one of the hardest things was actually just learning how to forge on copper-clad steel.
Mm-hmm.
because you get it to a good forging temperature, and the copper wants to start melting off.
Right.
Single burner forged tilt.
Where do you get the copper-clad steel from?
Loads from it's in one of the electrical sections, I think, but the grounding copper.
Oh, all right. And you just buy small sections? Because, I mean...
They sell them for like $1 a foot in 12-foot sections. Something like that. Maybe a little more than $1 a foot now.
I may have to try to make one of those. Those are pretty cool.
They're fun. That's kind of a newer thing on our Etsy. So that's really all we got.
Cool.
Do you have any questions for us?
No, I'm sure we got plenty, probably.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you know, this is a part 2 anyway, right? So we got my part 1.
Right.
We answered a lot of stuff in part 1. So, I mean, if you think anything else later, you know, we can always reshoot a small segment or whatever. I'm down with that. And if they get me back on, of course, you know, I'm willing to come back and talk to you guys again if you want.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Love to have recurring guests coming on.
Yeah.
It's more of a, like, I try to have it be more of a podcast than a real sit down and interview thing.
Yeah.
Kind of deal, but I just kind of, you know, trying to get into the groove of it. I'm not usually used to that line of work at all.
You're doing fine. You both are doing fine. I mean, just keep at it. You know, the more you practice, the more you do it, you're just going to get better at it. Just like anything.
Yeah.
You know, the fact that you're doing it is cool. I dig it. A lot of people dig it. You know, just keep doing it. And I say too, you know, if you're interested in being on the show, man, just go for it. Either one of you or both of you. If they have a couples thing, that'd be pretty cool.
I'm kind of hoping. I was really hoping that both of us, if they ever do like a couples thing on there, it'd be really awesome.
They have. In fact, I think when I talked to the producer originally, they did ask me if I knew any female Bladesmiths.
Mm-hmm.
Now that was a year and a half ago. I didn't know about you guys at that time, but I mean, that is one of the things that, you know, and my youngest daughter, you know, always asks, well, how come there's not more female Bladesmiths? I said, I just don't know.
They'll bug you about it. They literally will bug you. If you're a girl about it, they'll bug you about it. I've been bugged about it a couple times, actually.
She's been asked 2 or 3 times to apply, and then I've been asked 2 times to apply, and if I know any female Bladesmiths. But we've talked to their casting guy about doing it, and just like, you know, I'll have to get back to you. The last time I was working at the mill, so I just had absolutely 0 time to be able to do anything like that.
Right.
Not sure about having a meltdown on national television.
There's several like just hurdles we'd have to get over through in our heads to do that. It's just like it's hard to wrap my mind around actually getting into it and going over being in a studio.
Just remember, like you said, it's not live.
Yeah.
Right. So it is edited. And then like they told me, like all that medical stuff I went over with you, they like none of that was on the show. And they even told me that. They're like, we're not going to put any part where you were any medical issues where you were on the show. In fact, the only reference to it is Grady saying to me like, hey, how are you feeling? And I say, I'm doing better, thank you.
Like, so I don't have to worry about puking in front of everybody.
No.
No, they would not. I'm telling you, that wouldn't be on.
Yeah.
It wouldn't.
Well, that makes me feel better, because I know if I start puking, it would scare the shit out of everybody, because once I start, it doesn't stop.
I know at least having you with me would make getting on the plane to get there a non-issue.
I already told you I'd jump on the plane for you, honey.
Yep. I don't know if it's a heights thing or a control issue. I think it's mostly a control issue, because I don't even like being in a car with somebody else driving.
Right. I feel you on that.
And I think that'd be the only way to be able to get there is to fly. Unless it'd be cool with me taking a train or driving.
Yeah, I mean, you can get it. You can get there any way you want.
Okay.
In fact, they tell you. They told me if I were driving that I just had to limit the amount of items. I think they said I can bring 5 items from my forge, and that they would let me use. When I got there, I had to show them, and then you get to pick 3 of them. that you can use. However, like PPE doesn't count. So like you can have unlimited PPE. That's fine.
Okay.
If you have a particular hammer that you like, or particular tongs, or you want to bring some calipers or something like that, they just need to look at it first, and then you get to pick 3 of the 5 items that you bring with you that you're allowed to use.
Okay, because I'm pretty sure I'd be screwed with that Olympic.
Yeah. And then pretty much all I'd be interested in is like my favorite hammer and my favorite set of tongs. 2 of my favorite hammers and a set of tongs.
Yeah, and you could absolutely do that, without a doubt. And then, of course, you got access to the press, access to Big Blue. Everyone had their own grinder, so there was no issues with any of that. Like if all of us could have been grinding at the same time, there's 2 presses, one Big Blue, and 4 grinders. So you had to wait for the press, you had to wait for Big Blue, but everything else was pretty much like we all had our own porter bands, we all had our own angle grinders. There was 2 welders. There's only 2 of those. But again, like you're not gonna be there that often. Even if you needed to get over there, it's not like that's a station that you really, you're not probably utilizing very much, unless you're Jimmy and break your blade twice.
Oh, that poor soul.
Yeah, that poor soul.
That poor soul.
Yep.
Yeah, just getting back on that. I felt really bad about that thing melting in half, and then it broke in half in the vise.
I know. And then
I feel like that would have been like just a whole no.
Right. And then the judge is saying, like, talking about, like, when you look at the edit, and the judge is like, oh, his blade is so thin. And then, like, when he's wire brushing it, it's starting to bend again. And they're talking about how thin his blade is. I'm like, I felt bad for him, too. I was kind of like, man, like, it felt harsh, but maybe it was just reality of the situation, But I was like, ugh, I felt for him, But I mean, because this thing, it's forever. I mean, that show is filmed, edited, and they're not going to re-edit it. I mean,
they're not going to pull a George Lucas and
right, exactly. I mean, it's done. So what? Forever. That's it, and it's crazy. But
forever.
God, that takes me out more knowing that some of the people I listen to actually do watch that freaking show. It's just like, no, if I mess up, they're gonna see it and it'll be forever.
Oh,
and then when they see me, they're gonna be like, she fucked her blade up on Fortune Fireman. That's what I remember about her. She fucked her shit up.
I think I'd be more afraid of them catching me picking my nose or something.
Oh, they'd edit that out. And you're mic'd up all day, like I said. Like, the first thing you get there, they mic you. They take your cell phone, they put it in a Faraday briefcase, and then they mic you up. So, like, you're using the bathroom at some point during the day, and you're mic'd. And this is like, it's attached to your collar, and it runs all the way down your leg to your ankle where the transmitter and receiver are. And so you can't take it off. So if you're like, hey, I got to go use the bathroom, which is fine. They take you back to your trailer or whatever. You're mic'd up. And none of that, of course, they're not.
I feel for the person who has to edit that shit out.
Yeah.
I feel bad for the guy that has to do that, but at the same time, like, I would be like saying into the microphone to the guy laughing about it.
Start singing, or whatever. Yeah. I did that too. It's funny when we were walking on the set, and the person in front of me was like, they have to say in their microphone Smiths on the sets, so that the production crew knows that a Smith is on the set, and if there's something we're not supposed to see, they got to hide it or whatever. So they warn you, or they warn their own crew well in advance. Now they all have earpieces and mics. We only have mics.
Yeah.
So when they were walking on the set, the guy in front of me is like, Smith on the set, Smith on the set. And then I started saying it, like, because I'm just snarky and kind of funny. So then, like, I'd wait for him to say it, so I didn't get, I didn't freak anybody out. But he'd say it, and then I'd start saying it into my own mic. And it cracked me up. Like, I made myself laugh. But,
What kind of dudes You got to do stuff like that to take the seriousness out of it.
Oh, and I'll tell you one other moment that was pretty cool. So all of us are in the back and we're getting ready to go out for the first time. It's like a ride at Disney World almost. You're like in this dark hallway that's got, things from the set back there, so you're there, where you are. And we're all huddled up together, getting ready to do our walkout. But we have to huddle because that way no camera can see you, where you happen to be at. And Jimmy, he said, "Hey boys, we're on Mother Forged in Fire." And then we all fist bumped and did our little like kind of a high five moment in the back, which was kind of funny, just to emphasize the point. Like, I mean, and it's surreal. Like all of a sudden you're like, oh my god, I am. This is crazy. But that was pretty cool, and I'll never forget it. Like, that's just,
I bet.
Yeah, just one of the things he said. I was like, man, that's funny, and because it was true, it was just like I said. And when I walk out and I'm standing at my anvil and I see Grady and I see the judges, and I'm like, man, I'm living this right now. Like I'm living Forged in Fire. And when he says like, now you have to start, doing, your time starts now or whatever. Like you're living the episode. I mean, it's cool in a way, like I get to know what happens before everybody else, but also it's not cool because like when you're watching it from your couch, you're like, well, I would do this and I would do that.
Yeah.
Hey, when you're there and I don't hear what the judges are saying, they might be like, oh, I hope he doesn't do this. You can't hear him. So there's no like warning, like, oh, I heard Jay Nielsen say this. You hear nothing. Like, 'cause you got forges on, you got people moving around. And I mean, you know how loud a forge is.
Oh yeah.
Imagine four triple burner Majestics on full blast. You can't hear much. So
that's kind of messed up because when you watch the show, you kind of get the impression that everyone can hear the judges too.
No, you can't.
But I mean,
I always thought they couldn't because
I always thought sometimes they could. Like I knew it was going to be loud, and I don't know. I think it's just the way they edit the show together.
It is, and you're very far away from them. Like you're pretty far, so you get a better perspective of it.
Okay.
When they're doing the when they're critiquing your blades, you get a better perspective of it. Like watch where the smiths are standing when the blades are being critiqued, and then think of that as like, and look where the forges and the anvils are. It's way behind the smiths at that point.
Yeah.
You're still only halfway to the judges. You're still not there yet. So it's pretty far. And at that point though, there's no forges on when they're critiquing you. And then you can hear them. Then it's fine. You're hearing everything, no trouble, but you're also halfway closer to them and all the forges are off. No presses are on, no one's using a power hammer. That's all quiet. So that part's a little interesting too, in that you don't think that. And I'll tell you one thing that was, for me, an anxiety moment was we're all standing there and they're getting ready to bring our blades to critique our blades. And for a minute or so, you just have to stand in one spot. You have a mark that you have to stand on, and you're supposed to just stand there and be quiet so they can get a shot of you guys standing there or whatever. But the anxiety started to build up in me at that moment. Like, I'm like, I think I might fall out, because I get vertigo if I look straight up sometimes in a big open area like that. Mm-hmm. And the way I control it is I have to touch something and then I ground out. So, but I like, there was even no person within 6 feet of me, so I couldn't even like touch a shoulder of somebody or whatever. I'm like, man, if I start getting vertigo, I'm gonna pass out, or I'm gonna fall over like I got dizzy or something. And I talked to a couple of the other guys afterwards, because then finally, just as I thought, like, oh crap, I'm getting it in my head, like this is gonna be a problem. Then they started talking, then I was good. But I talked to one of the other guys later. I'm like, dude, at that moment, and the guy next to me, he said, I thought the guy next to him, or next to me rather, he said he thought he was going to pass out. And I'm like, all right, at least it wasn't just me. You know, everybody was feeling that anxiety. Everybody was feeling that moment.
Just the surreal feeling of being right there.
Right.
Crazy.
And like, you know, they're holding your knife.
Yeah.
You know, and you're getting ready to be critiqued. Like, this is the real deal. Like, are you going to make it forward or not? Or you just don't know. So that was pretty cool.
And do you actually find out like what the challenge is going to be when you get there, or do you find out before filming? Do you find out right there and there?
So there's depending on if anybody sees anything or not. You know what I mean? Like one guy saw the fish tank before the rest of us did, so it wasn't so that we were all on even grounds. They told us all about the fish tank. Now they didn't say why it was there, but because someone saw it, they had to tell everybody, and the fairness rules. You know what I mean?
Okay, so like there's like, hey, we got fish tanks.
Yeah. They're like,
okay,
I saw this, so we have to tell you that this is on the set. And then now, of course, you just start, like, everything starts going through your brain, you know? Like, why?
Yeah.
What could, you know, and we're all talking to each other, you know, the Smiths, like, oh, it's probably this, or it's probably that, or, you know, and you don't know until you go in there. And then the first time you see it, Grady pulls the cover off, you know, and you're like, all right, that's what we got to do.
And that's where I would hope that I'm wearing my brown pants.
Well, that's like I told you earlier. When I saw that, I'm like, this is a finale weapon.
Yeah.
You know, if you look back at any of the earlier seasons, like to make Damascus, nobody was doing it in on the show. They were doing it at home, maybe, but a lot of the earlier seasons, they weren't doing that. That was an extra challenge. And so something with the Habaki in the first round, I think episode 1 is a katana at build at the end. That's the first thing that had a Habaki, but it was a finale weapon.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I see that, and I'm going, are you kidding me right now? And then one of the producers asked me later, they're like, well, if you could have had your ideal scenario, what would it have been? And I said, signature blade, signature style, which is an excuse to make whatever the F I want to make.
Yeah.
And then within, 8 to 12 inches or something, because that's usually some on the shorter side that they do. And, like that. I would have loved, like, full tang, 12-inch, whatever width I feel like, because it's my signature blade, right, which can be whatever you want. Mono steel.
Yeah.
I'd have knocked it out of the park. And the other guys probably would have, too. I mean, we would have came all in with some pretty fantastic-looking things. But one of my other buddies who was on the show, I know one guy that won, and I know another guy that got runner-up. When they saw the episode, they both reached out to me and were like, man, I can't believe they made you water quench. So, like, they're really stepping up their game as far as, like, what they're challenging the Smiths with. Like, they neither one of them could believe, like, that was a requirement.
Well, I imagine they're coming up on 9 seasons now, and
yeah,
imagine they're starting to run out of stuff to think of.
Well, right. I say bring it back to basics and then have the challenges be more difficult as far as like the testing of the blades. But I mean, the people have been making blades the same way for thousands of years. Why to make that more difficult? I don't really think is fair to the Smiths.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally get it. In like a normal competition, yeah, but like they're also thinking like we gotta entertain the crap out of people too.
Well, that's true, and they have a formula that's worked well. There was another show on for a little while. And the name is escaping me right now.
Was that running competition?
This was not Knife or Death. I think that's Knife or Death. This one was on another network, and it was kind of they had professional blacksmiths and then professional martial artists testing the weapon, and then they'd have some. Danny Trejo was one of the hosts of it.
Was that Master of Arms?
Yes.
That was Trent and Ty's show. He hosted that one for like a season.
Right. So that one I don't think is on the air anymore.
No.
And when you would say to yourself, well, why not? Why did that go off the air, but Forge and Fire is still on? And I think it's because Forge and Fire includes the element of the everyman,
Yeah.
which is me, which is you all. We're regular people, and they bring us to this irregular situation where we have to step up and try to do our best to, and then of course we would automatically, you want to pull for somebody that you can relate with. If you see somebody that you relate with, you're like, hey, I really want them to do well. And I think that's why the show is so successful. And that's why I think it's not going away anytime soon either. There's going to be more seasons.
Yeah, and I hope it doesn't go away. I hope they never run out of ideas. And on top of like historical examples they could use, there's lots of fantasy weapons they can use, like from Lord of the Rings.
Exactly, and that's another thing that I recently had someone commission a Drax Dagger from me from Guardians of the Galaxy. So I said, do you want two? Because Drax had two.
Yep.
He's like, well, how much? And I told him, he's like, let's do one. I'm like, okay. But if he wants another one, he knows where to get it. But yeah, I love stuff like that. Like, to me, that's, people like, oh, I'm going to make a Bowie knife, or I'm going to make him, a standard kit, a chef knife or whatever. Like, I'm not passionate about that stuff. I don't mind that, like, every once in a while, but what I like doing is the fantasy stuff. Give me something from Lord of the Rings. Give me something from, even an MMO like World of Warcraft or EverQuest or something like that. I'd rather make that because that's just cool, I'd put that stuff on my wall,
Oh yeah.
Like a pirate dagger or a pirate cutlass or something. I want to do that stuff, Although, what's kind of cool, I don't know if you caught this or not, but when I did, when I had my announcement done for the show, I had the actor that played Syrio Forel in Game of Thrones did the announcement for me.
Nice.
Yeah, and he called me the first Bladesmith of Bravos. So now I can go by that. My daughter was saying, oh, now you're in the Game of Thrones universe because the actor who played Syrio Forel, the first Blade of Bravos, called me the first Bladesmith of Bravos. And that's on my YouTube channel too, the little introduction by him.
Yeah, we saw that actually. I was like, I don't know, we never really got into Game of Thrones, so I didn't know who that was or what, but I thought that was really cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's basically a sword master. He's one of the best swordsmen in the world, in the show. And he teaches one of the other characters sword fighting, basically. So, I thought it'd be pretty cool to have a guy like that do the announcement. And then he was willing to do it too, so that was also pretty cool.
That is really, really awesome.
Yeah.
I hope we get an announcement like that. But my brain's kind of going back to fantasy weapons. I wanted to make a Star Trek Bat'leth.
Yeah.
I've been talking about those for a while.
That's also something I want to see on Forged in Fire.
Yes.
Man, that'd be tough.
Right.
It'd have to be a finale weapon.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Because you can't. I mean, that would be a pretty cool finale weapon, though.
It would have to be a finale weapon, but for the first round weapon, they'd have to get the other Klingon. I don't know what it's called, but it's that Klingon dagger with the extendable.
Oh yeah.
Side.
I think Gil Hibben made that, like the original design for that. He made all the original Rambo knives. He's been a knife for probably 50 years. He was one of Ed Parker's students too, a Kempo guy. So Hibben knives is you probably recognize it right away. I think he did a lot of the fantasy and the Star Trek stuff also.
I know it sounded familiar, which is why I wanted to write it down. But
he might have done the Bat'leth as well. Yeah,
those are some pretty brutal looking blades, the Bat'leths.
I would love to see an orc pike.
Yeah, I've got a short spear on my list actually to make as well. So in Hellboy 2, the Golden Army one, I don't know if you know or not. So you know the dude with the like very white skin and the white hair, kind of looked like an elf guy?
Yep.
The spear that he has is like a short spear, like maybe 40-inch in total. You know, the handle's made out of, I would make it out of wood. But that's on my list to make too.
Didn't he have a sword that went along with it?
Yeah, he did.
Okay,
But short spear, like it extended in the
yeah.
show or whatever. But I just have it. I'd keep it as a short spear.
The sword he had, it was on my list. It kind of reminded me of a blade from the strain that I wanted to make. Quinlan's blade. I can't remember the style.
Which one? One of them was a gladius. He had multiple blades.
Okay, it would have been the one he had in New York.
I'm not sure. I know he had a gladius when he was a gladiator, and still Quintus.
Hello, folks. Thank you
They
for
all
joining
had
us
the,
with our
the
guest
femur
Martin
handle.
Seck
Mm-hmm.
Something like
on
that.
the Wartree Smithcast. That's right, you hear it. We changed the name of the show. This is for many reasons we did not take lightly, and we decided that after this last interview, it was quite a learning experience. Martin had nailed out our questions before we even asked them, and pretty much just left it up to regular conversation, and I think that's really how the show is supposed to go. So, we're changing format, changing the name, and you can expect a lot more great interviews, or sit-down and chats, whatever you want to call them, podcasts, Smithcasts. I really like Smithcast. It's pretty unique in its own. But yeah, thank you for watching. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe, and go check out Martin's work on his YouTube page, Panda Bear Forge. Y'all have a good one.
But yeah, that was one thing that kind of bugged me when I got done with your last episode. It ended up being like 35 minutes.
Yeah. Well, you know
What happened?
it was you guys were still, you know, kind of new to it, and then I was new to it too. So it was almost like an interview where, like a job interview, you know,
Yeah.
where you're asking a question and then you get a job interview answer instead of just like having conversations like we are now, you know. So if you're just like, you just hang out and you're having conversations, I think it ends up going, you know, you just more relaxed. Everybody's relaxed, me too, you know, and
Yeah,
then you're
and-
just talking.
And it's gotten more relaxed ever since we got rid of the papers. So maybe that's the thing I need to do is, you know, I don't know. Because I like having questions. I like having things to ask.
Oh yeah, have questions,
I feel
but
like essay questions though.
Yeah, but it comes off like you were saying. It's like I'm going into a job interview.
yeah, I think if you just have like a, you know, just you're hanging out with a friend, you know, you're just having a good time chatting, and then have questions, but be informal too, and then I think people like that also, you know. Well, hopefully this was a good episode for you, and you know,
Yes.
it'll bring things back to, you know, normalcy, and you know, get as soon as you have it edited, let me know, and I'll post it everywhere too. You know, I'll give you as much exposure as I can also to help bring interest and stuff. So, hey, I'll tell you what, if you want, I'll reach out to the other guys that was on my episode of Forge and Fire, and I'll ask them if they're interested in having an interview with you guys.
Yeah, that would be great.
Okay. I'll reach out to them. Let me know when this one's done and edited, and then I'll link it, and then I'll also let them know, like, hey, guys, this is an opportunity for you to also talk about it if you want. And you never know. I mean, one of them or all three of them might say yes.
I'd really look forward to talking to the rest of the guys from your episode. And I kind of want to have a playlist of Forge and Fire participants. And
Oh, that'd be cool. Yeah. Forge and Fire alumni.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so we'll let you go here. Not take up
Yeah.
much more of your time.
Hey, it was great chatting with both of y'all.
It was great chatting with you too. All
Stay in touch. We'll talk soon.
right, man. You have a good one.
You too. Bye.